Hi, I'm Peter Grant, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining how we managed to achieve 28% returns per annum. So we're going to take it in a few steps. And the first one is that you've got to imagine you've just bought a property in the UK and you've spent £100,000 on it. £100,000 is an easy number to work with, so that's why I've chosen £100,000. In the following year, it goes up in value and it's now worth 107,000. And likewise, the next year, it goes up in value by a similar amount. So that's a 7% increase each year, which is actually in line with long-term capital appreciation in the UK. So that's 7% per annum. And yeah, you're happy with that. But how do you get from 7% to 28%? That's the question, and that's what we're going to look into now. And really it boils down to the fact that you enlist the help of a friendly bank manager. So if we stick with the same principles and you've bought the house for £100,000, then in this particular case, you've borrowed 75% of the £100,000 from the bank and you've put in £25,000 of your own money. The property goes up in value by exactly the same amount, so it's now worth £107,000. So your cash has grown from 25k to 32k in a year, and that increase is 28% per annum. So that kind of explains the increase in the returns on your property. And the same thing happens the following year. It's a further £28,000, 28%. So that's where 28% per annum comes from. And obviously that's pretty good news. So let's just have a look at a couple of fact check issues around this. First of all, have prices really risen by 7% per annum? That's the obvious question, number one. And the answer is yes. So if you take the long-term average, so not last month or last year, but the long-term average, whether you look at 20 years or 23 years or 35 years, bottom line is that it is 7% per annum. And the obvious next question is, why do prices keep on rising? Well, in the UK, as you'll have seen in some other videos that have explained this through, in terms of the market and so on, we've got a supply shortage and growing demand. So it's simple economics, simple basic sort of supply and demand factors that are at play. And nothing has particularly changed in the 23 years that I've been around. We're still not building houses, and the population is growing older, and demand on housing continues to increase. The second thing to look at is how rents work within that scenario. So rents obviously pay, amongst other things, the mortgage, minor repair costs you might incur, safety costs and property management fee and so on. And that leaves a small surplus. Clients nowadays tend to buy in a limited company because it's tax efficient. And so that's where the numbers kind of come from. So with what we do, whether it's Applecross or Grant Property, the returns over the long run are 28% per annum. How does that compare with alternatives? Well, up until recently, we've probably been getting 2% in the bank. It might be less now with the base rates falling down to 0.1%, I think they're at currently. So that's a very favourable comparison, and I think that's why a lot of clients actually invested in property immediately after the financial crisis in 2008, because they just weren't getting a return on their money sitting in the bank. So that's a big motivator to put it into something that's, you know, got the features and characteristics of property. Alternatives also are, whether it's pensions or a managed fund, is you can put money in there, and I'm not going to second guess the performance of every individual fund, but pretty much most people that I've ever come across are not dazzled by the returns in such instruments and so on. So I think what we do really stands in very good stead compared to alternatives. Hopefully you found that of help. There are many other videos you can have a look at, and look forward to helping you invest and working with you. Thanks very much.